Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. The big day, the start of the T20 World Cup semi-finals is upon us at last, and obviously there's going to be plenty of focus on, you know for a fact that today we have New Zealand versus Pakistan taking place, but we also have some interesting news for you because there's plenty of things happening, not just in the T20 World Cup, but also beyond, and quite a few things happening that may have taken place while you were asleep. And no, I'm not talking about any earthquakes, but jokes aside, hope all of y'all are safe. That being said, let's take a look at what was happening in the world of sport whilst we were asleep, and maybe actually let's have a little bit of a chat about it. So let's actually first turn our focus to the India-England semi-final, and Ben Stokes has had some very choice words to say about Virat Kohli, who many of you would joke and say is already his favorite cricketer anyway. So Stokes' statement on him was pretty simple. He's saying that Virat could have 4 unbelievable years like he had, then have a not so loud couple of months, and then for some reason players like that will get written off. I've got no idea why. I think he's earned the right to never be written off. You don't produce the numbers and the innings he does over all 3 formats as players and people who play against him a lot. You never take anything he's done in the game before into the game that he's got here. So that's pretty big praise from someone like Stokes, who, as we know, himself knows a thing or two about delivering in big match situations and being the man for England when it is that they need him to be that the most. He simply said, look, don't write Virat Kohli off. I think he's earned that right to not ever be written off by anyone. He is not the only person in the cricketing fraternity who has recently been saying very good things about King Kohli. Brett Lee has made a very bold prediction about what he thinks that Virat Kohli can actually accomplish. What is it that Lee said? He said that he thinks Kohli can actually, break Sachin Tendulkar's record and get more than 100 international hundreds. You heard that right. In fact, taking to a video which he posted on his YouTube channel, he said that, look, around the age when most cricketers start to wind down at 34, their eyes might be getting a little dodgy, their reflexes aren't as quick or sharp. I think that with the kind of training, preparation and fitness that Kohli's had, your career is just beginning. I'm going to put you, and the your year stands for Kohli, I am going to put you down for another 4-5 more years, and what excites me is that at 71 hundreds to your name, I believe you can be the person that gets 100 hundreds for your country. Mate, you play another 3-4 years, score 10 hundreds a year going forward, that will set you apart from the rest. I have that dream for you. Now, many people believe that with the kind of blip that Kohli had in form during like 2020 to 2022, that he might just have lost that chance of actually getting to the 100 hundreds or breaking other records that Sachin may have put out there, because Sachin, even though he had bouts of poor form, never really went through a time period where he had a sustained run of poor form the way that Kohli did. But clearly Brett Lee believes that blip doesn't matter, and that Kohli, with the way he's been playing lately, if he can play that way for at least another few more years, can be the person who gets to that magical mark of 100. And especially now that, remember, Kohli's got 100 in all 3 formats, he's actually backing him to continue to do that in the future. It's a massive take, but again, it wouldn't really be surprising if it turned out to be true. Now, speaking on, of course, more on the India-England semi-final, there are a few injury concerns for England. Mark Wood, who's been a very key bowler for them with his raw pace, and also David Malan, who's been a key part of their middle order, although probably not been among the runs or as much among the runs as he would have liked, are of course currently doubts for the match, and there don't seem to be any clear indications as to whether or not they will be playing that crunch game against India. In fact, Josh Butler in the press conference said very clearly that, look, we want them to be fit and we will give them all the time that they need until tomorrow to decide on their availability. So long story short, there's no actual call that has been taken yet as to whether or not either David Malan or Mark Wood will be available. Of course, if neither of them are available, it will be a bit of a blow for England, because never mind Malan, but England don't really have a bowler who can do what Mark Wood does, and that is, of course, bowl at full tilt, look to clock in around 150 kilometers per hour, consistently be accurate. Wood would be a big loss. Malan too, although people don't realize it as much, because again, you'd have that expectation for him to be doing better than he did. But he's a very key cog who can actually hold the innings together, and that is something that England don't have enough of as batsmen. How it is that England cope unfortunately, we're only going to know when the day of the semi-final arrives, and that is, of course, tomorrow, Thursday. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, moving on from the world of cricket to the world of football, there's Carabao Cup action happening, or League Cup if you want its proper name in English football, and Bournemouth and Leicester City both ended up sealing their passage, safe passage I may add, into the next round. Bournemouth actually ended up thrashing Everton 4-1, and that's not going to be doing any favors to Everton manager Frank Lampard. And Leicester actually ended up getting a pretty easy win over Newport County, although they ended up suffering an injury scare when Justin, their defender, ended up having to limp off. So that's not good news for them. The good news, on the other hand, is that both these teams are actually through to the next round. Now, speaking of the League Cup or the Carabao Cup, whatever you want to call it, there's some big matches that are coming up, but probably none bigger than this one. City versus Chelsea. Now, obviously, both teams are going to be playing very, very different and changed lineups, in this particular tournament, because generally speaking, they don't start fielding their full teams. The bigger teams, that is, don't start fielding their full teams until much later in the tournament. So you're expecting to see a much changed lineup from both these teams, especially considering they have league matches that they want to be focusing on. And don't forget, this week is the last round of league action that will be taking place until after the FIFA World Cup. So there's actually a lot to keep an eye on there, but this is still a fixture that would get many people excited. It comes at a better time for City than it does for Chelsea. Remember, Chelsea have lost back-to-back games, first against Brighton, then of course against Arsenal. City, on the other hand, won their last game. They beat Chelsea's London rivals Fulham in a very close victory. So they're in decent form, and of course they have plenty of options to call upon from the bench. So who do you think will be the favorite? You can let us know in the comments below. Obviously, you know who I'm backing, but I'm not going to lie, this match does have me a little bit scared. Carrying on with the theme of football news, Barcelona fans, something for them to cheer about at long last. They despite the fact that Gerard Piqué actually ended up getting a red card in what would be his final match for Barcelona, Barcelona actually ended up beating Osasuna 2-1, and that result means that they now go 5 points clear at the top of La Liga over Real Madrid, albeit it is worth noting that Barca do still have a game in hand, or rather they have a 1 game ahead. Real Madrid, if they win that game in hand, it'll only be a gap of 2 points, but it is pretty impressive that Barca are still top of the league, considering that by all accounts they've been actually having a not so great season, particularly in Europe, where you'd remember they got knocked out of the Champions League into the Europa League and have drawn Manchester United for the round of 32. So it's been a pretty mixed time for Barcelona fans, but at least this does give you something to cheer about, because as I said, your team is now on top of the league. Moving on from the world of football to the world of tennis, and this lady right here, Caroline Garcia, is experiencing a massive career renaissance in the world of tennis, and she capped that by actually winning the WTA finals. Now, you remember that the WTA finals, like the ATP finals, is the year-end tournament for tennis, so means that there's no official tennis action that will be taking place after that. Yes, you do have players play a couple of exhibition games here or there, but generally speaking, the tour of the tennis tour does come to an end at this point, until of course the start of next year, when you'll have the Australian Open get underway and you have tournaments take place before that. But for Garcia, it's a massive win, because remember, towards the middle of June this year, she wasn't even in and around the top 70 of the rankings, but she had a major renaissance. She ended up winning 4 tournaments, made it to the semi-finals of the US Open, and thus actually got into a position where she could qualify for the year end, and then she actually ended up winning it. It's a massive, massive career renaissance, and if you're a tennis fan, you'd hope that she continues to actually, experience this kind of form going into the start of the 2023 season. Now, we're ending this with something a little bit lighthearted, involving this man, one Sir Lewis Hamilton. He has now been made an honorary citizen of the country of Brazil. Why Brazil, you'd ask? Well, Brazil and Hamilton do share very much of a love-love relationship, if I can put it that way. Remember, Hamilton won his first ever Formula One World Drivers' Championship in Brazil in that very, very epic finale in 2008. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube and check it out. It still gives me goosebumps watching that. And of course, you know for a fact that's Hamilton's favorite racer growing up was Ayrton Senna, a Brazilian icon. And of course, you remember 2021, the crowd were going crazy for Hamilton pulling off overtake after overtake in that sprint race. So Hamilton has now been named an honorary citizen of Brazil, and he took took to his socials afterwards, said that, very, very honored, and I've always felt the love of the Brazilian people, so I'm very, very happy that I've now been named an honorary citizen. He also posted the entire caption, by the way, in Portuguese as well, just to show off the fact that yes, he is very much in fact an honorary citizen of the country, so he put one in their native language. And that's it for this particular edition of the news update. Thank you all so much for joining us and for continuing to join us on a daily basis. Remember, if you enjoy what it is that we do, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel and tap that bell icon, leave us a comment, and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Thank you all once again for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Raj.